Oregon has worked continuously to prevent these kind of tragedies, but they continue to happen here and across the nation. And it is going to keep happening until we decide we want them to stop. There is no single solution that will prevent every shooting, but we must and we will do better to prevent these types of senseless violence.
And welcome back. That was Oregon Governor Kate Brown doing what she can to comfort those in her state affected by yesterday's shootings. As is typically the case following a tragedy of this sort, people have opinions on what can and should be done to stem the kind of violence experienced yesterday in the state of Oregon. With that in mind, we sent our Newsmax cameras out into New York City to hear what the public is thinking about this.
Not only on college campuses, I feel that, you know, the gun responsible people who are screened and certified should be able to protect themselves against the criminal element.
People who are law enforcers or who are meant to protect us, that's fine, that's your job. But everyday people are not supposed to be holding guns, and we see that every month with another mass shooting.
It would enforce that security officers at least be armed. So maybe the gun policies for the students shouldn't exist, where they should have the access to guns, but at least the security officers do, so that they safely use it when in jeopardy, like in this situation. It could have avoided 12 people being harmed.
Civilians should not have weapons ever. There should not even background checks. You just don't need it. Look at Europe. They don't have guns. You can't get a gun. Look at Europe. I just think that cut it out. Like, we don't need it. We're all safer without it.
As someone who comes from a country where guns aren't really an issue at all, I don't quite understand why you have so many guns across the population, rather than adding to it by giving more guns to people on campuses. Take guns off everyone, make them illegal, take them away.
Now, admittedly, New York City does have a large progressive population, which might explain how some of these opinions might be more progressive than you would expect from the general public, particularly when it comes to regulating guns. But these opinions often lead us to wonder what impact we, the media, have on the thinking of the American public. Joe, you're the media expert around here. I couldn't help but notice that a lot of the reporting we got yesterday as this hall was breaking and things were happening turned out to be kind of wrong. In fact, we, right here on this set, made a few mistakes ourselves, as seems likely to happen. The question is then, does the media have to be a bit more patient, spend a little bit more time to be more diligent in the reporting? How do we stop those kinds of mistakes from happening?
They used to be able to be more patient because you only had ABC, CBS, right, NBC. So you were only competing against two other guys. Now it's hundreds of outlets, but more importantly, it's social media. So to give a football analogy, it's like I'm a quarterback, I'm back to pass, and suddenly I got a blitzing linebacker coming in. That's Twitter. I got to get rid of the ball before I'm ready to. Right. And that's what a lot of news organizations do. In the effort to be first, they're not necessarily accurate, and that's the problems that we saw yesterday. Information getting out there just so you have the exclusive or you have the upper hand, but we're not really verifying like we used to.
And I think that's absolutely right. Jonathan, you know, last night we had talked about one of the issues about gun-free zones, and we all wake up this morning and it was a pretty thick question. Now, it turns out, based on your information that you just gave us, it does appear that it was a gun-free zone, but now we've gone through a lot of today with a lot of reporting saying no, it wasn't because of a state law. Things can be complex sometimes, is the point. And we really don't allow much time for all of those of us who are talking heads to really know what we're talking about.
Right, but Rick, you're exactly right. So what we should focus on, and I think in the media, is what we do know, which is something that's repeated over and over. Immediately politicians come on board and they do not empower the people. They want to minimize the people's responsibility to take care of themselves. And some of the people that we just saw on this program, on that little clip there, I mean, the reality is, while they were standing there, if a gunman had come down there, there would have been nobody to protect him. There was no cop just hanging out down there. The reality is, we have to be able to empower the people to take care of themselves. And if we're going to make, this country was built with a constitutional right to carry weapons, it's going to be there. Let's make it to where it's effective so that people can carry them legally and use them legally. Yesterday, There was over 900,000 legal owners of guns that didn't shoot anybody.
Right.
Right?
Scotty, when we were watching the video, the Man on the Street video, you had a reaction to something. I wanted to give you a chance to
That
say
was
what
obviously
that was.
not in the real world. That was obviously New York
Well,
City.
it was New York City.
It was New York.
Yeah.
New York City isn't the rest of what America is like, because you would have to search for people in Texas, in Tennessee, in the South,
very much the
that would
opposite.
give those
That's
exact
right.
answers
That's
right there.
Which is why I said what I did. You're absolutely right.
And that's why I love that you did that. But let's look at Chicago. In the first 15 hours of this week, 14 people were shot dead in Chicago alone.
Right.
How many people do you think were shot by legal guns?
Probably not a
none,
whole
because
lot
there's
of them.
none allowed in Chicago.
Right.
Very few can have it. That just goes to show that any of these gun restrictions, as you were to justify your point, any of these gun restrictions, all they do is take us able to defend ourselves, whether you're in a gun-free zone or not.
Rick, some fascinating studies that I came up with in my column, comes from Arizona State University.
Wait, it's Joe
Did you hear
commercial
that?
time for his
Exactly.
column. What column would that be, Joe?
That would be in Mediaite.
Mediaite.
Yes.
M-E-D-I-A-I-T-E.
Let me get to it.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Just
No,
wanted to make
nothing
sure.
shameless going on here. And they found that 20 to 30% of attacks are set off by other attacks.
Right.
So what I came to the conclusion of, and Megyn Kelly does this on Fox, and Anderson Cooper does this on CNN, don't say the guy's name, the shooter's name. Don't show his
The
picture.
sheriff did not do that yesterday.
No,
did you
he
notice
didn't,
that?
and he
He
didn't.
said, I am not going to say his name, and I don't want anyone else to say
it became a big
it.
meme today where
Loved
people
it.
were, on social media saying, do not repeat his name.
Huffington Post isn't now. Gretchen Carlson did it
That's
on
a
her
darn
show.
good idea, if you ask me.
It doesn't solve the problem, but it's certainly
But
something
it helps.
that can help.
It's denying him what he wanted. What do you think about gun control laws? Go to newsmaxtv.com/comments. Let your voice be heard. Coming up, the Vatican has finally admitted that the Pope did meet with Kim Davis in Washington, D.C., but he has a different story. Stay with us.